Worms are silent parasites, internal parasites, slowly incapacitating Zimbabwean farmers by contributing to issues of poor health, high mortality, low reproduction, all of it contributing to major losses, financial losses that can be attributed to thousands of dollars within the Zimbabwean economy. This and more on today's episode of Agricultural New Directions Agribusiness in support of Vision 2030. Stay tuned. Thank you, livestock farmers and those aspiring to invest in the livestock business, for tuning into yet another informative edition of your program. You are watching Agricultural New Directions Agribusiness in support of Vision 2030, and today we are looking at the deworming exercise. What is it about? Its essence, its importance, and how it is done. And I am joined by Dr. Choga. He is with Cooper's Animal Health, working with various farmers here in Zimbabwe across our geographical locations, ensuring that they are protecting their head, which is their investment. Dr. Choga, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Adza, for inviting me.
In this discussion, what is deworming? What will be taking place, and why is it so critical in the livestock industry?
Deworming is very critical in Zimbabwe, in the Zimbabwean farming context, because for every farmer, for their enterprise to be profitable, their cows need to be able to produce a cow per year. So let's say there's a farmer who's got 10 cows, who's running a herd of 10 cows. Those 10 cows should be giving them 10 calves every year. And for them to be able to achieve that, one of the most important practices or routine practices to do is deworming. So to try and address your question on what is deworming. So deworming is basically the removal of worms within the gut or the stomachs of our cattle. And there are quite a number of worms that we have that are affecting cattle. We've got what we call roundworms. These roundworms are mainly a problem around January. Then we've got tapeworms. Tapeworms are mainly a problem in the younger animals.
Okay.
Like your lambs, your kids, and your cows. During the winter season, mainly that's when it's a major problem. So that's when you need to be looking at winter throughout the year actually. That's when you need to control your tapeworm. Then the third type of worm is the liver fluke. So the liver fluke is mainly found during the winter months, and it's spread by what do you call it? By snails.
Oh, okay.
And you find them in waterlogged areas. And it's got the most impact in terms of weight losses. And the impact of worms to the farmer is that worms, they cause a reduction in the efficiency of the feed conversion. When our animals go to graze or are fed, they then are not able to convert that grass into meat.
Because the worms consume all the feed, and then it results in weight loss.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So there is that. Then in addition to that, they also result in stunted growth in your younger animals, particularly tapeworm, of course, with the other worms. And when the animals have got stunted growth, it means that the farmer, when they are selling their winners in the market, they will have much lower winning weights, which means they will be paid less. And when it comes to even if they are heifers, the age at which they are ready for breeding, it will be much higher. Most of the farmers are targeting between 18 and 36, not 36 and 20, I would say 24 months, to ensure that their cattle are now, their heifers are now breeding.
They're able to conceive.
Yes.
But then it takes longer because of worms.
Because of worms.
Okay.
Like you'd get to see that you can have a heifer that's up to 5 years.
Without conceiving.
And sometimes it's because it had a stunted growth that ultimately led to it not conceiving at the right time. Then the other issue is that you have seen a lot of farmers now in Zimbabwe, they're wanting to venture into pen fattening. And in doing pen fattening, the target of the farmer is for the animal to gain a certain number of kgs per day. And if there are worms, those number of kgs that they are supposed to gain, they will lose at least 30% of that. Which means if they were targeting 1.5 kgs a day, they are only going to be able to get a kg.
The other 500 grams is being fed to the worm, which is internal, which is inside the animal.
Inside, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that farmers also need to understand about these worms is that, contrary to the other parasites that we've got, your ticks, your flies, the farmers can visibly see them. But with worms, you can't see.
Oh, okay.
Unless your animal gets sick or it's now losing weight, So you see the byproduct, and at that point the farmer doesn't have much to do. So yeah.
Now, looking at the blueprint of deworming, you spoke of it not being visible. The worms might not be as visible to the naked eye,
Yeah.
but you only see the adverse effects,
Yeah.
weight loss,
Yeah.
poor reproduction, infertility, because you will know that this is because of worms.
Yeah.
Looking at the blueprint throughout the seasons, we have
Yeah.
4 seasons in Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
What will be taking place? The process,
Yeah.
how is it then done? How can a farmer deworm? Do they use chemicals? Is it physically? What do they do during the process of deworming?
Yeah. So yeah, farmers will definitely make use of these chemicals. We've got quite a number of different ways of controlling worms. We've got oral, like where you're drenching, literally kudoza nemukanwa nje.
Kuti inoita zvekutomwa.
Exactly. Then we've got other methods where you can use a pour-on. That's not used a lot. There are some pour-ons that can actually, where you apply it on the back line and it controls worms.
Okay.
Then the third method is injection. There are injectables that you can inject, and they control worms within the system, and those last a little bit longer than your oral treatments. So when it comes to the blueprint in terms of the timings, you know, we've got our seasons that you highlighted clearly. As we start the year, that's when we're in the rainy season.
Yes.
Wet summer season. During the wet summer season is when we've got a huge spike of worms, and basically during that time it's mainly your roundworms and tapeworms.
Okay.
Because the waters will be flowing, liver fluke won't be a problem. And at that point we recommend deworming with dewormers that control roundworm and tapeworm.
Okay.
And tapeworm, we're mainly targeting it in the younger animals that are less than a year. Older animals, it's not a problem because they can fight it themselves. So what farmers can use during that time is products like Systemax liquid. They can also use bimectin or ecomectin. These are products that they can use to control worms during that time and to maximize their production during that time.
Okay.
You know, that's where we expecting our harvest. Then as we move from the rainy season, we're getting into winter. And during the winter months, what's now happening is that the farmer, the cattle, the nutrition, in terms of nutrition, you see that the grass has turned from green to a straw color, which means that the nutrients are now low.
It's now dry.
Then number two, other worms now come into play. Worms like liver fluke. Tapeworm continues to be a problem. And at that point, we recommend farmers to be deworming their cattle with broad spectrum dewormers. They can use injectables such as Bimectin Plus. They can also use orals like Systemax Plus or Newzan. And all of these products that I'm highlighting in this program, they are safe for use in pregnant animals, because that's usually a concern to most farmers as we are in the game to produce. So that's during the winter months. But as we get out of winter, we are moving to a time where we're now preparing for the summer. And one thing that farmers need to understand is that these worms are passed onto the pastures or grazing area as dung in eggs.
As cow dung.
As
When
in
they
eggs.
excrete the eggs, then stick to the grass.
Exactly. So those eggs, when we get into the rainy season, as the rains start, it means all those eggs that were in the environment, they're going to hatch.
Larva, and the cycle begins.
The cycle begins. And so what we also try to do is to cut off that passing of those eggs. So we deworm all of our animals, so they won't be able to pass the eggs because all the worms would have been
Destroyed.
So we do it around September, October, November. It depends where you are in Zimbabwe, because our rainy season starts different. In some areas it's even December. And at that point we recommending use of broad spectrum dewormers, your Systemax Plus, for example, News and Drench or Bolas, Bimectin Plus. Yeah, so basically that's what we're recommending. And these, if we implemented well, will help our productivity to even increase.
Are there any signs, would you say, in a snippet, when it comes to your livestock,
Yeah.
ukaona dzisiri kuguta,
Yeah.
you would say inyaya yemaworms? Is
Yeah.
it the same case as in human beings, just as we close this segment?
Yeah, I think it's pretty much that. Of course, in human beings, there are people that just don't have the right genetics. I look at myself as an example, but
You can eat and eat, but never
Nothing
increase in size.
nothing happens. But it applies, and it applies in that for our animals, we're trying to produce. It's like it's like a factory. So
they are feeding but not gaining weight.
Yes.
But
So-
you buy supplements, you
Yes.
release them to graze,
Yes.
but nothing is happening.
nothing will happen. So that's why it's very critical that we are deworming those animals regularly, and more so because these animals, contrary to us, most of our food is very clean. You wash your dish, the dishes are washed, then you eat clean food. But these animals are going through the pastures, which I don't know if there is anyone who sweeps their pastures or their grazing land. So they are exposed to those worms more so than we do. So it's critical.
We're going to go on a short commercial break. Right back with this and more in the second segment. Stay tuned. Thank you, farmers, for staying tuned to Agricultural New Directions Agribusiness in support of Vision 2030. Now, internal parasites are silent thieves, taking away from you silently and slowly. You only see the adverse effects and the implications and the impact of what they do to your animal. You might feed it, but it never gets fed. You might feed it, but it never reproduces. When you are expecting a heifer to conceive, it might not be in a position or a condition to get pregnant and give you a calf. This is what we are discussing in today's episode, deworming your cattle. Now, viewers, encourage you to be a part of these conversations. Feel free to get in touch with the producer, Wadzanai Manyore, so on 0772807506. Alternatively, you can like our Facebook page, Agribusiness with Wadzanai. Make a follow-up on this episode and more. Leave your comments and suggestions. Our YouTube channel is Agribusiness with Wadzanai. On X, formerly known as Twitter, it's at Agribusiness110. On LinkedIn, it is still growing but very thriving. Our profile there is at Wadzanai Manyore. Now, earlier on for the break, Dr. Choga here was just speaking in line with trying to align human activities to those that take place within the cattle, the livestock venture. In humans, we also have that similar situation within our livestock, within our cattle rearing ventures, where you might be feeding your cattle, but at the end of the day, you cannot amount to the kilograms in exchange of the feed that you'll be feeding the cattle. Dr. Choga, we are here in the second segment. Welcome back.
Thank you, Waza.
Looking at the winter season, why should be a farmer seized with issues of deworming during the winter season? And why should they be more worried during the winter season, where we are experiencing a dry season in Zimbabwe? In winter, generally, we do not receive any form of rainfall whatsoever.
Yeah.
Why should a Zimbabwean farmer be more concerned about deworming in the winter season? What takes place there?
Okay. Yeah, so that's a very good question, Waza. I think the biggest misconception is that when you get into winter, because it's very dry and everything should have sort of gotten into what we call a quiescent form where there is no activity whatsoever, the belief is that no form of animal health management should be done, including deworming. But it is important for us to deworm in winter The reason being, one of the worms that I discussed in our earlier segments, the liver fluke and the tapeworm, they remain a challenge even through winter. The reason why these worms remain a challenge is that, contrary to the roundworm, which doesn't have shelter, these have shelter when they are outside the host. So that means that they will still be transmitted. Like, for example, your tapeworm, it stays in a grass mite. So when your animals are grazing, they will pick up a grass mite, then they will swallow it, and that's the introduction of a tapeworm in their system. As for the liver fluke, it makes use of the, what do you call it, snails. And during winter, you see most of our cattle, they go and graze in those areas that are green. And those areas are the waterlogged areas, which is where you would find high doses of tapeworm, of liver fluke, sorry. Even those dams that have dried, there will also be very high doses of liver fluke. And as a result, we recommend farmers to deworm their cattle. And another interesting fact, Wadza, is that in the winter, liver fluke is one of the worms that has got the most impact in terms of weight losses. It brings it down that much because it's targeting the factory, which is the liver. Because everything in the animal's body is happening with
That's where the
liver.
metabolism takes place.
Exactly. All the nutrition that you're getting in, it's manufactured through the liver.
Okay.
So because of that,
It hits the factory.
Exactly. So literally, it's like it hits the motherboard if it was a computer. So because of that, it's critical for our farmers to deworm, and dewormers that they can use, there are quite a number. We recommend the broad spectrum dewormers. They can use in their younger stock. We recommend things like System X Plus or any other benzimidas or best dewormers, and it's being used at double the dose in the younger stock. It can also be used in older stock at the normal dose, because in older stock there isn't a challenge with tapeworm, which is a very difficult worm to control. That's why we're using double the dose.
Okay.
But in addition to that, if your farm doesn't have a problem with tapeworm, you can also use Bimectin Plus. In addition to that, you can also use dewormers like News and Bolas or Drench.
Okay.
So all those options are available for farmers to use during that time.
Now, Dr. Choga, as we are getting into the cooler weeks, we are getting into the real cold of the year, July and at the early weeks of August. What is it about the winter season that makes this issue very prevalent and very topical for our livestock farmers in Zimbabwe? Why the winter season in particular?
Okay. So what happens, I would try to take you through the seasons, so that there is creation of context. So when you look at our seasons in Zimbabwe, in the rainy season, there is green grass. And in most areas, that's where you're seeing that your animals are thriving. They're in very good condition because there is enough nutrition. But as you get into winter, even if you've got grass this long, the nutritive value is gone down. For most guys that are in agronomy, they know that that grass is lignified, which means it's very difficult to break down.
It's not palatable.
It's not palatable. So that makes it even more difficult because your animals don't have, even if they are grazing, they are not getting enough nutrition. And my recommendation to most farmers is that they also need to consider winter supplementation, just to try and find a protein leak that they can come in with and to support. But maybe to get back to your question, what happens is that if those animals are not dewormed and there already isn't enough nutrition, what then happens is that it actually further pushes.
And it reduces its weight very rapidly.
Very rapidly.
Both the grass is not palatable and here it is a host to a number of worms.
Exactly.
Okay.
And more so this season, Wadza, you would be aware that we are going into a super El Nino, they call it, which means that we're going into a drought. So my recommendation to farmers is that they need to make sure that their animals, as we cross into next year, they end this season in the best possible condition, such that they can be able to stand the drought next year, so that we can get into the next rainy season. So it's extremely critical that farmers are implementing all the management practices available to ensure that their animals are in perfect nick to allow us to survive the next drought or El Nino in our next season.
Assisting with the chemicals that you use during deworming and even the strategies that you come up with, a brief touch on the nutrition.
Yeah.
You spoke of supplements, the protein leak.
Yeah.
What else would you want to advise our Zimbabwean farmers in line of making sure that they are supplementing the feed?
Yeah.
The grass is already dry.
Yeah.
These cattle might be victims
Yeah.
to hosting worms within their system.
Yeah.
What else would be your recommendation aside from the chemicals?
Yeah.
Some supplements that you might want to highlight that can aid in
Yeah.
maintaining the body condition of the animal.
Yeah, so basically from a supplementation point of view, it's just making sure they've got access to the bulk, which is the grazing, no matter what quality. But in addition to that, it's coming in with, there are several companies. We don't do that. We are not in that space, the nutrition space. But there are quite a number of companies that actually have these protein licks or winter blocks that they can supplement. So that's what I would recommend in addition to the
Chemicals.
to the deworming.
Okay.
Yeah. But not that the deworming definitely needs to be there, because even if you're going to feed, it's still going to reduce the effectiveness of the utilization of the feed.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Choga, for that. There you heard it, viewers. We are speaking of deworming, where we are saying that it is a process that assists your cattle when it comes to the feed conversion ratios, its ability to convert the feed into the flesh that you are looking for, so that it maintains its body condition during the winter season, getting into the summer season. And farmers, you might want to know that we are headed into an El Nino-induced drought season, where our cattle might suffer. This is the season where you need to address all of your issues, taking care of deworming and also coming in with supplementary feed. We're going to go on a short commercial break, but right back with this and more in the third and final segment. Stay tuned. Thank you, livestock farmers, for staying tuned to Agricultural New Directions Agribusiness, and those looking to invest in the business. You might want to get in the business of pen fattening, and deworming plays a critical role. It is a strategy that you need to understand and implement so that you are successful as a Zimbabwean farmer. We are here in the third and final segment of your program, and I am still with Dr. Choga. He is with Cooper's Animal Health, ensuring that Zimbabwean livestock farmers do have access to strategies and ways in which they can use chemicals to the betterment of their enterprises. Dr. Choga, we are here in the third and final segment. Welcome back.
Thank you, Waza.
Looking at the seasons that we have in Zimbabwe, summer, winter, autumn, spring, would you maybe want to highlight the form of chemicals that are maybe specific to that season? We do have these types of worms always are trying to maybe transform themselves, adapt to the new condition. If it's winter, it presents itself as maybe liver fluke. If it's summer, it comes across as such and such. But in the process, all the same, they are all worms targeting either the metabolism of your animal, maybe causing the deterioration in its condition. Looking at the seasons that we have in Zimbabwe, what sort of chemicals would you want to highlight for winter, for summer, for autumn, for spring? What kind of chemicals do we have on the market?
Yeah, so I think that's a very, very important question that you ask, Waza. Because the different seasons they present differently, and I think it's important for farmers to understand that. But also, in addition to that, I would also hasten to say that farmers also need to also look at the different age groups because they behave differently. So I will try to answer it in that way. So when you look at from an age or class-based approach, your animals, when we look at the younger animals, my recommendation is that when you're deworming your animals that are younger, less than a year, I would recommend you use dewormers that have got a benzimidazole based chemical. And an example would be Systemex or Systemex Plus.
Okay.
Those two. If it's Systemex, they can use the normal dose. This will help control the tapeworm because tapeworm is the main problem in the younger stock.
Okay.
But in the different times, they are also affected by the worms that are actually affecting the other animals. So if it's at other times, you can use Systemex Plus as well. So basically, that's one critical thing to try and approach because those younger stock are the replacement stock. So the better we are able to manage it, the better our productivity in the years to come, the better our future. So that's why it's critical. So that's the first thing. Then the second thing, Wadzanai is now looking at the different seasons. So at the different seasons, like during the beginning of the year, remember I told you that's when the roundworms are problematic mainly. And at that point, we recommend deworming with dewormers such as Systemex liquid, not plus, or bimectin.
Okay.
You go for the pluses when your animals are drinking from a lake, from a dam or whatever. That's when you can do that.
Okay.
But otherwise, you would just use the Systemex liquid or bimectin, the plain ones. So that's the first, with the summer season, which is the wet summer season. Then as we get into the winter, at that point, the biggest problem is that our animals are now going to those areas where there are little bits of green grass, green palatable grass, and those areas you'll find a lot of liver fluke. Then everywhere you also find tapeworm. So what that means during that time, you would recommend farmers to be deworming their cattle with a more broader spectrum dewormer. Examples would be Systemex Plus or Bimectin Plus or even Nilsan, Bolus or Drench. So these will cover all their problems. But for the younger stock, remember, they're separate. We'll give them Systemex Plus and double the dose.
Okay. Then
moving into the late summer, or early summer, early dry season, when it's hot and dry, when the rains are just starting. We're now recommending deworming with the very same dewormers that we used in winter. We could switch them around in terms of chemical. Like, let's say, for instance, in winter, you dewormed with Systemex Plus. At the beginning of the rainy season, you're coming in with Bimectin Plus, something that's different.
You're trying to alternate.
Exactly. Remember that issue that we're talking about, development of resistance. So that's something that we're also trying to counter. But I'm open to helping farmers that would want to really come up with a program. We can do
a deworming program.
Yeah, that they can work with outside the generic ones, because we've got generic ones that we share at exhibitions and all those different areas. So that's how they can do it. Then lastly, there's another segment that you also highlighted, which has sparked interest over the past, I would say, 3, 4, 5 years, which is pen fattening.
Okay.
And at pen fattening, deworming is critical. It's a critical portion of what we call the induction program. When a farmer is starting to put their animals, when they just get their animals, they are now about to put them into the feedlot. Deworming is critical because remember, they will lose that half kg per day. of the 1.5 that they should make. Which
Going
means,
to the worms.
Which means they will end up with 1. So one dewormer that I've seen being very effective are the injectable ivermectins that have got a fluke activity. That's your Bimectin Plus and other alternatives on the market. So that's what they would need to use. And that's of an advantage because it lasts a little bit longer within the system as opposed to your orals. Your orals have got their own advantages as well.
Now, as we close this segment, Dr. Choga, administering these chemicals, is it orally, injectables?
Okay.
Do you pour them on the animal?
Yeah.
And does it depend with the age of the animal? Does the administration vary according to age, to size? What is it like?
Yeah. So to try and address your last question, Wadza, in terms of the administration method, with these animals, it's not really a problem.
Okay.
And it's not age-based because, as you know, I mean, contrary to us humans, a cow will produce a young one that already runs. You can't catch it. But for us, you have to learn to crawl and do that. So in terms of capability, they are way ahead of us.
Okay.
So the method doesn't really depend on age. That is if we're talking about deworming.
Okay.
Then in terms of the different types, the most common one is drenching, oral drenching.
Okay.
Doza, dosing gun. So that doesn't require that's one method that's common that we use. Then the second method that we also use is an injectable, where we inject under the skin. We're using ivermectins. So that's the second method, and it's fairly common. In terms of ease of using it, I find it easier because you don't have to handle the animal to try and open its mouth. You're just injecting under the skin and you continue. So it's much quicker. So you would get to see that guys that have got bigger heads, they tend to do that more. But we recommend that farmers change like the type of chemical that they're using and not you just use one. Then the third method is pour on. It's not very common. There are very few dewormers that I know that you can use as pour on. Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, those are the three methods of control.
In a snippet as we close, Dr. Choga, the frequency of deworming. In cattle, you spoke of dipping weekly.
Yeah.
The whole 52 weeks of the year,
Yeah.
you need to have a consistent dipping schedule.
Yeah.
When it comes to deworming, what is the frequency, like the periods of deworming?
Yeah.
How frequent do you do it? Is it very regular, or you have periods where you stop, or you desist from deworming, or it also does have a schedule that you need to stick to?
Yeah, so in terms of regularity of dipping, of deworming, or dosing, it's quite different from what you get with dipping.
With dipping.
Dipping is very frequent.
Okay.
With deworming, it's much less frequent because we basically deworming around January, February. Then we're coming in again June, July, April, May, June, July. Then we deworming again September, October, November, wherever your rain begins. So that's where we deworming. But also farmers are not limited to that. In the case that you've got an animal that you see that there is a problem with worms, the farmers can then come in and deworm again.
Okay.
At that point, because it can be used preventatively or therapeutically, which is to treat. So basically that's what farmers would need to do. So as a farmer, we recommend that when you're moving around your pens, look at the dung, check if there are any worms within the dung. If there are worms within the dung and you have not dewormed, you know that you need to deworm, even if it's not prescribed by us.
Okay.
Because these are, what we are doing is strategic deworming based on our knowledge of where you find the worms. Then in terms of the younger stock, the frequency is even more because they've got a lower immunity than the older ones. So we tend to deworm them at 2 months of age because younger ones, they start picking grass at about 6 weeks.
Okay.
And that's when they can pick up worms. So we start deworming at which is 8 weeks, 2 months. Then we deworm again at 4 months, then again at 6 months.
Okay.
Then after that, they now move with the schedule for the rest of the herd. But this is to try and maximize our future so that we get the best replacements in our heads.
Thank you so much, Dr. Choga, for that. It was a pleasure having you with us today.
Thank you, Waza.
There you heard it, viewers. Today we're looking at issues of deworming, given that they play a critical role when it comes to reducing reproduction. They do affect fertility. They also do affect and cause high mortalities, and even the general condition of your animal. You might feed it, it will never get fed. You are in the pen fattening business, you might not get the returns that you are looking for because of the internal parasites, the worms that your animal would be hosting. From me, your host, I'm also on Instagram, it's at Wadzi110, and the crew behind the scenes. Have yourselves a fabulous evening. Thank you for watching.